So before we start our walk today, I've got to return this box of signed books to the brilliant Newham Bookshop just over there and sign a few more, and then we can crack on with today's adventure. Oh, look at this on the counter. Look at this incredible London section in Newham Bookshop. If you're a fan of London books, which I imagine you would be if you're watching this video, look at this. Get yourself down to Newham Bookshop. You can also order any of these online. I mean, here's some crackers. That's an amazing book. I'll link below to an interview I did with Patrick Keeler about that book. That's a great book. I'm saying I haven't read it yet, but I've got it. And there's so many others. I mean, they're all great books. Look at this. And this one, Vivian assures me this is fantastic. Look, Forest Gate, A Short Illustrated History. Mark Gorman and Peter Williams. Look at this. We're not walking around Forest Gate today, but that is a great book. Look, just like the back of this book, Eagle and Child, North End Plashet, East Ham. We're kind of around here, and we're kind of going down there. Oh, look at that! Building Utopia about the Barbican Centre. That's amazing. This has also been recommended to me as well. Julian Darley, excellent Essex. And of course, the brilliant Pie and Mash, the photo book by Jake Green, with a little essay by yours truly at the back about the pie shops that are no longer with us, called the Dead Pie Shop Trail. Look at all these brilliant signed books. You can buy these online from the Newham Bookshop. I'll put the details below. Tom's doing some great camera work there. And there they are. A nice pile of signed books awaiting your orders or a visit to the Newham Bookshop. There you go. It's nice to be on the bookshelf with Tom Bolton. Should really go in the Boleyn. I've heard really great things. It's been completely refurbished and apparently it's a real gem. Not that it always wasn't, but it's been given a new lease of life. But I need to crack on with the walk. And we're going to start off walking down here, down Boundary Road, the old boundary between East and West Ham. The old manors of East and West Ham that go back, well, they predate the Norman conquest. They're that old. So today we're going to the Alps. Well, we're going to the Alp. Anyway, the Alp. Beckton Alp. East London's Alp. Only one Alp, but better than no Alps, right? And actually it ties in really nicely with the book, because this is a part of a walk that's in chapter 2 of the book. But I shot some video on the day, and there is some of that on the channel here with some of the audiobook, but I've never really properly made a video, and also I've never been up Beckton Alp, so maybe that's something we'll try and do today. I don't know whether it's still possible or not. I think there is a kind of break in the fence where you can get up there, and then we'll explore the site of where Stanley Kubrick shot his Vietnam War epic Full Metal Jacket. I would say the greatest of all the Vietnam War movies, and it was shot down in this little corner of East London. And there are more stories beside. The lost village of Cyprus. Oh, I mean, it's so rich with narrative here. Possibly, I was going to say where you would least expect it. Would you least expect it? I don't know. Maybe you would most expect it, particularly if you watched enough of these videos by now. You might think this is the perfect territory for amazing stories. And this is where you could go up onto the greenway, the footpath, the pathway that runs along the top of Bazalgette's enormous sewer pipe that led out to Beckton. But it's actually a pretty boring walk. I've walked along there, and actually I came off the greenway to walk along here, along Lonsdale Avenue, when I did the walk for my book, and I've walked the southern section of the greenway. It's quite a quick way to get from A to B, but it's not a lot going on really. And the sewage treatment works are still down there at Beckton. That's one of the surviving things, it's sort of part of its industrial legacy that remains. Of course, it was the building of the sewage works was one of the factors which transformed that area from a kind of remote, marshy wasteland. The other one, of course, was its enormous gasworks. We won't talk too much about that now, we'll save it till we get down there because this is all part of the story. But it's the gasworks that leads to it being the setting for Full Metal Jacket. Again, more detail when we get there. I'm just sort of teasing these things out now and showing you the connections between what might be parts of kind of infrastructure, city infrastructure. You might think, well, I'm not that interested in sewage and gasworks. You'd be forgiven for thinking that. But it ties into everything else. Everything is connected along a pipe. Look at these wonderful trees here. I think there's some kind of pine tree, aren't they? Not necessarily what you'd expect to find in a fairly urban part of East London, but what a wonderful little treat along the way. Look at these houses here, aren't they? Aren't they fantastic? Just very simple, functional houses, probably social housing. Possibly built on a bomb site. And look at they've put a lot of thought into the form and the detail there. This area was really quite badly bombed during the Second World War due to its proximity to the Royal Docks, and also they'd have been going for the sewage works and the gas works. Take out the sewage in the city, you take the city out. Take out the gas, you take out the power. But you get these pockets, like these ones behind me would be survivors, these houses here. Whereas on the other side of the road, I'd say that's possibly a bomb site. May not be, may have just been wasteland. But when I was doing the walk for my book, I met some people in the street who told me that their house had had a bomb land nearby, and the roof of their house had just gone straight up in the air and come back down on top of the house, and it had been that way ever since. It's difficult to believe, I know, but it's a great story. Can you see it? Can you see it there? Rising on the far side of the A13, Billy Bragg's trunk road to the sea. Can you see it? Yeah. That's Beckton Alp. We've got to try and find a way up there, haven't we? It might be more difficult than you think. Now I know at this point some of you are screaming, John, stop, go back, turn left up there to East Ham Church graveyard. East Ham Church, the burial place of William Stukeley, the founder of modern Druidry. But I'll link below to the video I made where I went to East Ham Church and graveyard. So yeah, that'll be down below. We've got our sights firmly focused on the Alp, the mountain. So all I can see, can't see beyond the peak that we must climb. Last time I was down here, there was like a hole in that fence down there, but I think we have to go up around this way. I should have looked this up before I came out, shouldn't I? But I think it's an ever-shifting situation. That's led us to the Greenway, so maybe this is where we can find access to the Beckton Alp. This doesn't look too promising at the moment. I think I might have to go back out and around. I mean, there's a gate here. Surely it's not just as simple as walking through this gate, is it? Let's give it a go. They really don't want people going up here, do they? I know I haven't told you what it is yet. I'll do that when we get access, if we ever get access. I feel like we will. And for those of you going, climb over, I am not taking on those guys. I think that ends really badly. I love the fact there's a certain sense of humour calling it Alpine Way, isn't there? They're doing that with their tongue in their cheek, definitely. Particularly when I tell you what Beckton Alp actually consists of, what's underneath it, and it ain't rock, let me tell you that much. So we're going to go into the London Industrial Park. The London Industrial Park. I've never actually been in here, even though, like I said, I did a survey for my book. I didn't come this way. I just powered on down Manor Way. Here we have another gate, solidly padlocked here. and just to be sure, chained and padlocked here. I wonder why they don't want you going up Beckton Alp. Is it because of what it contains inside? The deep dark secret buried beneath the undergrowth. Well, I think it's pretty clear that they don't want you going up Beckton Alp. Not only is it padlocked and inaccessible, but there are signs warning of hazardous, toxic wasteland. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I wonder how wise it is to film yourself committing an act of trespass. It's one thing to do it and not document it. It's quite another thing to do it and then put it on the internet for lots of people to watch, hopefully. Well, look, I don't think we're going to get up Beckton Alp, which is really disappointing. But there you go. That's the way it is, I suppose. To roll with things. I'm quite a law-abiding guy as well. I think you may have picked that up by now. So I'm not bang into testing the boundaries of the law, filming it, and then waiting to see what happens. But anyway, Beckton Alp, I have to tell you what it is as we walk down this industrial estate, which is actually really quite interesting in its own right. This was the waste tip from the gasworks. When Beckton Gas Works opened in the 19th century, I think it was 1870. I'll correct that on the screen if it's wrong. They had to dump all the kind of waste from the gasworks somewhere, the coke and other things that came out of that process, that quite toxic process. And this was all just marshy wasteland. This was completely open, marshy land. There was nothing here apart from the gasworks, the sewage works, and the colony at Cyprus over there, which is where the gas workers lived, at Cyprus. So this became an enormous pile of toxic waste. And then when the gasworks was decommissioned in 1970, this all just became an abandoned wasteland. And that's when apparently locals started calling it Beckton Alps, because of all these toxic mounds. Iain Sinclair has said that it was pure arsenic, apparently, absolutely pure arsenic. But then in the late 80s, they thought, well, if you're going to call it Beckton Alp, what do you find in the Alps? You find skiing. And so they actually put a dry ski slope on the top of Beckton Alps, and it literally became Beckton Alps. And there was a ski lift, there was a ski lodge, and all sorts. But it is no more. I don't know where. I think it closed sometime in the build-up to the Olympics. And I thought it had been opened as a nature reserve. You can see there is some sort of Newham Council signage there, but at some point they've obviously decided to board it up and stop people going up there. Maybe it's because it's a mound of toxic waste. That might be something to do with it. You can see, look here, they are not playing around, are they? So I think we will just walk through this industrial estate down towards Gallions Reach and the scene of Stanley Kubrick's epic Full Metal Jacket. That's a great story. Can't wait to say that story. I love that story. Look at this. What a beauty. What it takes is a lick of orange paint to transform this into an artwork. Not quite the wonder of the gas towers, but still an impressive structure, that mobile phone mast there, isn't it? So Beckton was part of the Docklands redevelopment that happened from the late 70s, like through the 80s, that led to the building of, that area around Canary Wharf, the redevelopment of the Royal Docks, all of that happened, and this was part of it anyway. This was part of that whole area that they suddenly found no use for anymore after the docks moved east to the big container ports further down the Thames, and the gasworks closed, and they had this enormous area of industrial land and what they would have seen as wasteland. Of course, I'd say there's no such thing as wasteland, really. Nature will find a use for it, that's for sure. And so they came up with plans for what to do with it all. And there was a series of booklets that described the work they had done here. They're very proud of it. I think it's called the Docklands Development Corporation. And I can see some houses up ahead that are, I think, from that booklet. Some of the sort of, I think there's a decent amount of social housing down here. And I think the private housing down here was more affordable than in other parts of London. And at one point they were going to relocate the Clays Lane Tenants Co-op, I think, to Beckton, or that sort of area. So they had all sorts of different ideas for what to do with it. But it's kind of amazing to see it now and then think of what it would have looked like, well, 100 years ago. It would have looked incredibly different. Wow, this is really interesting actually. These houses here, I guess these must be the houses that were built for the workers at the gas and coke works and the sewage works, because obviously once upon a time they were the only people that lived out here. It was really remote and kind of cut off from the rest of London. These houses look like they are of that kind of vintage. I didn't know they existed. Wow, what a gem, what a find, just from walking around that industrial estate. And look down the end of Windsor Terrace here, I can see what look like some big gate posts. I think that must be the old entrance to the gas works. Gotta go and have a look. Oh wow, yeah, look at this. Do you know what? I should be slightly ashamed to say I didn't know this was here, because like I say, I researched it for the book and wrote about it, but I took a sort of quite a different route to get here. I went along Armada Way, which was quite dramatic, but I had no idea that this remnant of the old gasworks was here. So we can go through this little open space here to Stanley Kubrick's Vietnam, what the actors called Bec Phu. The author, Thomas Burke, describes a walk that he took from Barking to Cyprus in the 1920s in his brilliant book, The Outer Circle, Rambles in Remote London. Isn't that a title of a book? And he comes through in the mid-1920s, and as he arrives at Beckton Gas Works, he talks about the shock of wonder of the sight of the gasworks and the towers and their kind of gaunt, arresting beauty. So we're going to cross the road here and head into the Gallions Reach Shopping Colony. I think what they're doing with the name here is borrowing a little bit of heritage from Tilbury. So I think, isn't that where Queen Elizabeth I addressed the fleet before it went off to do battle against the Spanish Armada? So Tilbury's it's a few miles from here, but I suppose it's the same region. And this is the Beckton Gas Works as it is today. Obviously it's a shadow of its former self. That might be down to technology, I guess. But when it opened in the 19th century, it was the largest gasworks in Europe. Now, the only surviving remains of the old gasworks were the gasometers, which I think were here. Don't tell me they've taken them down. Surely not. I thought they were listed. They can't have got rid of the gasometers. I'll be outraged if they have. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, this is all well and good going on about gasometers and gasworks and sewage treatment works. That was also the largest in Europe when it opened as well. You know, but what's this got to do with Stanley Kubrick, the great movie director, one of the greatest movie directors, a real visionary and a pioneer? Well, some of you may know that Kubrick famously didn't like flying, or at least that's what he said. I've read somewhere that, you know, that was just a thing that he did. And he lived in Hertfordshire. And when they were looking for locations for Full Metal Jacket, someone spotted the disused gasworks here. When they went out of service, it was available to be used for filming locations. And because the buildings were going to be demolished, you could do whatever you liked to them. You could blow them up, you could shoot at them, you can do anything you like. And it just so happened, by a mad coincidence, that the architectural style of the gasworks down here matched that of the industrial architecture of Hue in Vietnam, which is where the film was set. I think it takes place during the Tet Offensive. So it actually was a perfect match for Vietnam, apart from, I guess, the light and the sky. So Kubrick transformed this landscape around here, this derelict industrial landscape, into a portion of Vietnam. Hundreds, if not thousands, of palm trees were brought into the area and planted. and they put graffiti in Vietnamese on the wall and post, and they dressed the whole set to make it look like Vietnam. Go and have a look at some clips on YouTube, and if you look really close, you'll think, yeah, it does look a bit grey and miserable there. And it's incredible. And they brought in tanks and helicopters and actors, and the actors to kind of sort of simulate the idea of a squad of young recruits being sent to Vietnam on a tour of duty. Is he recruited rookie actors, and Matthew Modine, who's the principal actor, I think he was the most experienced actor in the cast. And a fantastic fact as well is that the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket was a real drill sergeant. He was brought on as a consultant, and in the end he was so convincing they went, you play the role. So when he's yelling at them, shouting at them, he's doing that for real. What was amazing was when they were doing the filming, you'll see that there's tank shells going off. There's some amazing scenes that were shot down here. You can see them blowing bits out of the buildings, and obviously there's all the shot marks. They'd do a take and Kubrick would go, no, I want to do it again. So before they could do it again, they had to rebuild the set. So the actors would have to go off back to the hotels for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks until the set was repaired, and then do another take. And they'd go, okay, let's change the angle. And they'd have to go through the whole process every time. As a consequence, the actors' tour of duty doing Full Metal Jacket was 4 months longer than tour of duty in Vietnam. And in the well, after they finished filming and well into the 90s, I was really tantalised with stories of people finding palm trees still growing down here, and that they'd left some of the posters on the walls. And I think you'll see, if you go on Flickr is where I'd seen some photographs of that. And then it was also used as the location for the film adaptation of George Orwell's 1984. And there was some of the artwork that they plastered on the walls for that still left here. Some of the Big Brother is watching you and all that stuff was still littered around this landscape, the landscape laid to waste by Kubrick during his filming. I think there are a few pop videos shot down here. I think the Smiths shot one here. And these retail units here around the edge of the car park, it's almost like a car park with some shopping, isn't it? But this is roughly the location of the old gasworks buildings used by Kubrick in the film. So this is where the US Marines were making their advance across the kind of rugged grounds just around here. And the iconic scene of when there's the young female sniper picking them off one by one. The building that she was in, I think I worked out that that was roughly where Tesco's is today. I can't remember how I worked that out actually, but I remember being pretty convinced about it at the time. I'll link below to some of the other videos I've made around the area. I did a fantastic walk around the Albert Island with a local resident there who showed me the wonders of that. That's just the other side of Gallions Reach there. And I've walked down the other side of the sewage treatment once there along the River Roding, and of course across the other side of the River Roding you've got Barking as well. And we've got the video made in East Ham. So there's plenty of coverage of this area. And this area to the left of the frame here, I think is another scene in the film where some helicopters land, and they were, I think they were Belgian Army Westland helicopters that were repainted to match US Marine colours. There's sort of red flares going off as they come into land on this landscape here. And this is one for the railway nerds of you out there. This is the Beckton Docklands Light Railway Depot. This is where the trains come to be serviced and cleaned and all that business. Incredibly important point on the network. It's still such a strange landscape, isn't it? This tract here is owned by the National Grid. You've still got these large areas of kind of post-industrial wasteland here, right in East London where there's so much development at the moment. Well, as I walk along Armada Way towards the Albert Dock, this is the perfect place to conclude our Beckton excursion. I mean, it's a real shame we didn't get to climb the Alp, but what can you do? It was fantastic to come back down here. I love the Kubrick story, you can probably tell. And I really love this landscape. It's such a mysterious, strange, uncanny kind of, I don't know, there's another word I'm looking for here, eldritch landscape, that's the word I was looking for. An eldritch zone here in East London. Well, look, that concludes the walk. I hope you're staying safe, taking care, getting out there and doing a bit of walking if you're able to. And as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. I keep thinking I know where it's going to be, and then I kind of change my mind at the last minute. So really, who knows?